Action now from the Gauteng Government, represented by the MEC for CoGTA and Human Settlements, Lebogang Maile. MEC, good evening, and thank you very much for your time tonight here on the newsfeed late night. Residents, close to 2,000, wanting land there in Rabie Rigde. The response by the police and the security guards and the exchange that has been going on there. What's your reaction?
Evening, and thanks for having us. As we have already stated in our statement that we condemn the illegal occupation of land. We know and understand that there is a land hunger, that there is a huge backlog of human settlement in our province because of immigration.
All right, MEC, apologies. Unfortunately, that line is not too great, so we'll try and get you on the line. We'll come back to the MEC in a moment to get him on a better line. Meanwhile, in Cape Town, 2 people died after sustaining fatal burns in an inferno in the early hours of this morning in Blackheath, and the community members there were already attempting to douse the fire when fire crews from the Kales River and Mdluli were dispatched to the scene and extinguished the blaze. The 2 bodies were found beside a bed and were burnt beyond recognition. The bodies are believed to be of an adult and a minor. The cause of the fire is still unknown.
2 persons sustained fatal burn wounds in a fire during the early hours of Monday morning in Blackheath. The city's fire and rescue service received an emergency call at approximately 25 minutes to 1 of an informal structure alight in Omo Court, Wimbledon.
Right, former Gauteng Health MEC Dr. Bandile Masuku's bid to challenge the Special Investigating Unit's report on the PPE corruption has been dismissed with costs. The matter was heard in the High Court in Pretoria. The SIU last year found Masuku failed in his duty to conduct tender oversight. The matter related to a PPE contract by a family friend and suspended former presidential spokesperson Kusela Diko and her late husband. Masuku argued that there was no circumstantial evidence and that the SIU's findings were unlawful and invalid. But now the Special Investigating Unit has welcomed the decision.
It means a lot to us, and it's also an affirmation on our side that we are doing things in the right way. We have always been saying that we are not about individuals, we are about processes, and when we find people inside those processes, we will say it as it is. And this is a clear indication that whatever I keep on saying, that all our investigations are allegation-based and our outcomes are evidence-based. It's showing now in this kind of judgment where the court clearly indicates that there is no fault in what we have done, and we have clearly shown to the court that we are able to give evidence that we find, and we have done so in the report that we have given to the Premier that has led to the Premier acting the way that he did. But it is also a clear indication to other executive authorities, be it in municipalities, be it in provincial government or national government, to know that they cannot stand aside and aloof and say we are not involved. If there are things that they need to do, they must act and act decisively on those issues because they are able, in the position that they find themselves, to deal with those matters.
All right, the MEC back with us now on human settlements and urban planning here in Gauteng. Maile. So MEC, you were still saying, as per your statement, you condemn all forms of lawlessness. What do you make of the response? Others are saying, well, those scenes remind us of how police used to deal with black people in South Africa back in 1976.
Well, I was not on the scene, and what I can say is that we don't condone violence, either by the police or by our residents or citizens. We don't condone any form of violence, and we would want to urge the law enforcement agencies that as they continue to enforce the law, they should also make sure that it's not in a violent form, and they try by all means to employ other tactics in making sure that there is law and order. But as I'm saying, I was not on the scene or at the scene, and I don't know what would have transpired, so I wouldn't want to comment on how, say much, in fact, on how the police have dealt with the situation, except to urge the law enforcement agencies to be circumspect when they deal with our people.
There are questions around the ownership of this piece of land that the residents were trying to occupy. Is this privately owned land, or is this land owned by government?
The land is owned privately. It's not owned by government. In fact, before 2016, the ANC-led municipality in Johannesburg went to approach the courts to expropriate the land. And post 2016, I think the city was not keen on pursuing the matter, and the matter was thrown out of court. So that land is actually earmarked for residents who are living under the Eskom servitude in Ivory Park, and their lives are in danger, but it also constrains the development in that area and the capacity of Eskom to provide electricity. So we had decided to buy the land so that we can relocate the residents of Ivory Park. However, there were few issues, as I'm saying, including this court matter, but there's also town planning issues. There's no services there, and there's a need for investment on bulk infrastructure once we buy the land. So we just need to make a determination whether the investment must be made by us or by the owner, so that by the time we take the land, ownership, it's ready to be dispersed to our people, so that we don't buy the land and it's going to remain empty, and it will obviously create other problems like invasion.
Yeah. So the two questions that you're raising. One is the court challenge, which the previous administration of the city did not challenge, and it won in the favor of the landowners. Are you challenging that court decision?
No. At this point, that might prolong. And at this point, what we need is to get safe and habitable land for our people who are living under the Eskom servitude. I think the quickest way is to have a conversation with the owners and agree on how best we can manage the issue. We've already mandated the Housing Development Agency, which is an agency of national government, to negotiate on our behalf and give us feedback on how best can we proceed in managing this issue. But we want to find the solution as soon as possible, because there are people who need that land.
How far are those negotiations? How far is that process of negotiation to get the land? Because there are also reports that the landowners are saying, well, that land is earmarked for other development.
Well, I think, as I've said, there's been a lot of processes initially, and I think the current owners have bought from the previous ones who actually took us to court, or who were challenging government to court. So these are the new owners, in my understanding. So it means that discussions can only start now. But I'm not privy or part of discussions, because, as you know, this is part of procurement, and we are not allowed to be party to those discussions. Otherwise, we'll be accused of interference and corruption and all sorts of things.
At the level then of engaging the community, who are obviously clearly angry at this particular point, and their anger is continuing to rise to the extent that there are such confrontations with security forces. What is the engagement that is going on there?
The anger of the communities is justifiable, and we have dispatched a team from our rapid response team to engage and help to calm the situation down. As I've said, the issues of land and human settlement are big issues in Gauteng. They're big, and they're very emotional issues. There's 1 million people who don't have houses as we speak, and government has got limited, and it's an issue we keep on raising. So this is not the only community that is angry. Our communities everywhere in Gauteng, wherever you go, people are very angry because there's a huge demand for human settlement, and we will try our level best as the provincial government to work with the private sector, to work with other spheres, and move as speedily as possible to solve the much needed needs of our people. And as I've said, their anger is justifiable, and we must be put under pressure, and we must absorb the pressure because we've got the responsibility as government to work with our people in finding a solution that is everlasting. And that's why invasion does not help because it creates chaos. In the process of invasion, you have criminal elements who are organized in the form of cartels, who end up building a lot of shacks and owning bigger pieces of land and renting those out to our people. So we wouldn't encourage our people to fall prey to some of these vultures, and we have seen them in various areas perpetuating and encouraging land invasion, knowing very well that they've got ulterior motives. And because our people are genuinely in a desperate situation, they end up believing and joining this element. So we want to call on all our people to desist from participating in illegal activities.
MEC, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight. MEC
Thank you.
for Human Settlements and Urban Planning and CoGTA here in Gauteng, saying invasion is fertile ground for vultures who want to come in and pry on the vulnerability of the homeless and end up occupying huge parts of that land and selling it to the people at a premium. And he wouldn't encourage that, but giving us his word that they are working fast in negotiating the purchase of that land for the establishment of that particular land for residential purposes.